Rishus Rosh Yeshivas, Rishus Rabbi. It's a well-known fact and documented fact that Jews have achieved in almost all fields of endeavor totally disproportionate to the numbers of the world population. Whether it's in medicine, whether it's in science, in sports, Nobel Prize laureates. By extension, I would propose that the influence South African Jewry has had in world Jewry and world Jewish affairs is totally disproportionate to the numbers. I believe today they number about 70,000 Jews, which is a small percentage of the world Jewish population. Yet the influence is felt all over. I think a living example would be Ohr Somayach Yerushalayim. The influence of South Africans here, both mitzad the staff and the students, I think is disproportionate, and I'm not biased. I mean, how many people are walking around saying, "How's it brew?" By further extension, the chief rabbi of this relatively small community, his sphere of influence is totally disproportionate and totally larger worldwide compared to the size of this Jewish community. Rabbi Goldstein's known worldwide for his achievements, starting, we all know the famous Shabbos project, which started as a local South African project, has now spread worldwide. He's known for defending Torah Judaism, Jews, Israel, in all forums across the world, in an articulate and coherent manner via multiple and various media outlets. The famous post-apartheid leader of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, who was imprisoned in Robben Island, afterwards was freed and then became the first post-apartheid president of South Africa. His favorite so-called clergyman was Rabbi Goldstein. It was at Nelson Mandela's funeral that Rabbi Goldstein was called upon to eulogize him, and in front of all the world leaders who were attending that funeral, he donned his talis and eulogized him at a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. Lo sagurut meish. He's not intimidated to call to task, to rebuke world leaders who he feels are not being fair or straight or moral, which is the case. Whether rebuking President of South Africa, whether it's rebuking the Pope even, Rabbi Goldstein does what he feels has to be done. Now, even though we were just discussing as he walked down, we're not sure if this is his first visit to Ohr Somayach Yerushalayim at all, or definitely to the new campus, but his association with Ohr Somayach via South Africa goes back a long way. In fact, one of his first rabbinical posts, if not his first one, was as the Rav of the Sunny Road Shul in Johannesburg, which was then a branch of Ohr Somayach. And then even after he became chief rabbi, and I used to learn, have story in Ohr Somayach main Beis Medrash in Glen Hazel, and still to this day his Shabbos minyan is a 7:30 Ohr Somayach minyan at the back shul, where he gives a chabura in Igros Moshe after that minyan. He also has a nephew learning Pisgah this year. So his association with Ohr Somayach is strong, goes back a long time. So it's with a great honor that I call upon Rabbi Warren Goldstein, Chief Rabbi of South Africa, to address us.
Yeah, that's fine. I just went to the office. That's all. No, it's fine. This is fine. Rabbi Konak, thank you so much for such a warm and generous welcome and introduction. Appreciate it so much. I feel so at home here. And it's a tremendous nachas to be. I thank you for your friendship and for your support and for your kind words. And also it gives me nachas, that the top shiur in the Beis Midrash program is given by a South African, given by you. And I have heard so many wonderful things about your shiur and your Talmidim. So it really is an honor to be here. Rosh Hashiva's Honored Rabbonim, it's very special to be here in this magnificent Beis Midrash. As Rabbi Konik pointed out, the connection between Ohr Somayach and the South African Jewish community is very deep. We have many, many Talmidim here, of course, primarily in the Piska program, but in every part of this yeshiva. And that works in two directions. The Talmidim who come here and learn in the walls of this Beis Midrash and who have become inspired and begin their journey as aspiring Talmidei Chachamim is something which brings me endless nachas. But it also works in the other direction because, as everybody knows, a very important part of the history of South African Jewry and probably the most famous Baal Tshuva movement in recent Jewish history, which affected and took hold in South Africa disproportionately more than any other Jewish community in the world, was led from the front by Ohr Somayach and the establishment of Ohr Somayach with Rabbi Shane and Rabbi Mofson and the wonderful pioneers who brought it, including of course your own Dean and Rosh Hashiva here. So it's the impact on South African Jewry is something which is truly profound, from the yeshiva to South Africa and then back here with our Talmidim. And so in a real sense, there is a special bond between this Beis Midrash and our Jewish community in South Africa, and it's a bond which I treasure and our community treasures, and it's a schus, it's a privilege for us. It's so wonderful to hear. I was talking a little bit earlier in a meeting just before we began, and to hear how the yeshiva is thriving and so many Talmidim, both in quantity, in quality, the learning, the shiurim. It's really a true beacon of light of Torah, and the Jewish world needs Torah now more than ever. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to address the yeshiva and to be here, and I thank you for that, and I thank you on behalf of the South African Kehillah for everything that Ohr Somayach has done over the generations for our community, and I look forward that long may this wonderful shutfus and partnership continue, Michael El Chayil. So one thing that I thought to discuss today is the focus of the avodah of a yeshiva bocha, because what is it that we're focusing on? And there's a very important insight, and it's something that I've been working on to try and understand. And at first glance, it may sound that it should be really obvious, but it's far from obvious. And let me begin with a very simple question: what is Pirkei Avot? Because on the one hand, it looks like it's Eitzah and it's getting advice for life from Chazal, but we know that it can't be, because it's a Masechta of Mishnah. And Mishnah means it's part of the Ikar Torah Sheba'al Peh. And actually, according to the Gemara in Brachos and Daf Daled, Mishnah by definition is mitzvah. Like when it says on the pasuk, mitzvah zu Mishnah. Mishnah is the Tariag mitzvahs laid out according to the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Everything in Mishnah comes from the Tariag mitzvahs, and the Tariag mitzvahs come out of the Chumash. In Avos, there's nothing. There's almost no mention of any mitzvahs. With one notable exception, which we'll discuss in a moment, but there's almost no mention. There's no mention of Shabbos, Kashrus, Taras HaMishpacha. There's a passing reference to tzedakah. Even that it talks about the midas in people who give, but not a direct reference to it. There's no mention of Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. There's no mention of the foundation mitzvahs that make up what it is to be a Jew. So what is this? It's a Masechta of Mishnah. It's Ikar Torah Sheba'al Peh, and yet it seems to be an arbitrary collection of wisdoms and advice for life from Chazal. And of course we know, and this is a point that the Maharal makes in his Peirush in a number of different times, that there can be nothing in Pirkei Avot that would be conventional wisdom. Like he says, Lo Abaishan Lamed, it can't just be saying a person who is shy, who is afraid to ask questions won't learn, because anyone in the street can tell you that would not be Chazal. But even if you go beyond that level and try and understand what the Masech, at a deeper level, but what is it? What holds in one Masechta that you can have in one Masechta, Asay lecha Rav Keneh lecha Chaver, and in the same Masechta you can have Ba'asar Mamaris Nivra HaOlam, and in the same Masechta you can have Asay Toras Chakeva, and so many different things. The Olam Omed Al Shlosha Dvarim. There's so many different dimensions to this. It seems to be, at first glance, on a superficial level, an arbitrary collection of different Ma'amarei Chazal. So what is it that defines the essence of Pirkei Avot, and what is it doing in Shas? And I want to answer that question. And once we've answered that, then I think it'll lead us to a broader discussion about the she'ifa of a ben yeshiva. What is it to be a ben yeshiva? What is it that you're doing here all day? What is the essence of it? And I think the foundation insight into Avos comes from the one that has resonated most deeply with me is one which I saw both in the Maharal and in the Gra, where they're going on the Gemara in Baba Kama and Daf Lamed, Man de boy lemahave chasida, a person who wants to be truly saintly, a great person. So it says that they should occupy themselves. Three opinions are brought: Mili de Brachas, Mili de Nezikin, and Mili de Avos. In matters related to Masechta Brachas, matters related to Nezikin, Seder Nezikin, which is the damages and the financial relationships and the halachas governing society and business, and then Mili de Avos, Pirkei Avos. And the Gra, both the Gra and the Gra says this actually right at the beginning of his Peirush. He doesn't say this in Avos, he says it in the beginning of his Peirush in Yeshayahu Dafka. Interesting that it's brought over there, and it's brought as a side point, one line in a very long paragraph of the Gra. The Maharal says it in his Akdama Pirkei Avos. They both say the same pshat, and actually the Mahashar says it on his Chidushei Agadus as well. They say like this: Brachas, Mili de Brachas is Bein Adam Lamakom, Mili de Nezikin Bein Adam Lechavero. So that we know that generally all the mitzvahs, the Tariag mitzvahs, are divided into these two major categories: Bein Adam Lamakom, between us and Hashem; Bein Adam Lechavero, in interpersonal relationships. Brachas symbolizes all of the mitzvahs that are Bein Adam Lamakom, relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because that's what Brachas is: Shema, Birkas Hamazon, Tefillah, the Brachas, all of those things, the direct relationship with Hashem. And then Mili de Nezikin is Bein Adam Lechavero, all of the interpersonal relationships that govern ethical conduct and legal conduct between people. And those are the two big categories that you find in Chazal. In Chazal, these are very well-known terms: Bein Adam Lechavero, Bein Adam Lemakom. Comes along the Gra and the Maharal, and they say it, and the Mashar says it, kimat, exactly the same lashon, and they mechadesh a third category, which to the best of my knowledge is not brought in Chazal. They mechadesh a brand new category that's not brought in Chazal, Bein Adam la'atzmoi. between a person and themselves. That means that part of the avodas HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not only what we do for Hashem and what we do for other people, but it is the person that we become as a result of that. Meaning the Taryag mitzvahs is not the end of our chiyuvim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is part of it. Those and the two pillars. All of the Taryag mitzvahs are beinam lamakom, beinam lechavero. But there is something else that is not even in the Taryag mitzvahs, and yet it forms such an important foundation that it's equated with them. Because as the Lashon, I believe the Maral says about Avos, it is in terms of kamus, in terms of quantity of shas, it's a drop in the ocean. But in terms of eichus, it stands up there because the fact that this Gemara in Baba Kama, and it's the Gemara actually, Chazal in the Gemara telling us how to look at Shas Mishnah, and it's saying that Avos is not just, because until now Akasha was, how does it even fit into Shas Mishnah? Now he's saying not only does it fit into Shas Mishnah, it is the one of the three pillars of the whole Shas Mishnah. It's true that the rest of Shas Mishnah, with its 60 plus Masechtas, they are 90%, 95% devoted to Beinam Lamakom and Lechavero and to the Taryag mitzvahs. There is one Masechta in Shas which is not based on Taryag mitzvahs, which is its own category, Bein Adam La'atzma. And what is this Bein Adam La'atzmo? So first, the chashivas of what it is. What is Bein Adam La'atzmo? So they all say midas. Maral, Gra, Marsha, they say it is midas. Now, how can it be? The midas of a person, if it's so important, why is it not mentioned in the Torah? So the Gra says at the end of his Perush on Megillas Esther, he also says it in his Perush in Shir Hashirim. The Gra says, midas are not one of the Taryag mitzvahs, not because it's less important, but because it's too important to be included as one of the Taryag mitzvahs. Midas, the development of character traits and refinement of character traits, is so important that it could not be just one of the Taryag. And I use that term just in inverted commas. Of course, every mitzvah is, it's a direct instruction from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What could be more important than that? Except that the Gra says in his Perush at the end of Megillas Esther, he says that it is koilel kol ha-mitzvahs, because and we'll discuss why in a moment, but it is so all-consuming and so powerful and so important, it cannot just be one of the Taryag mitzvahs. And so it becomes the foundation pillar of this concept of Bein Adam La'atzmo, the development of midas. And a major part of what Avos is about is the development of midas. That is at least half of the Mishnayos in Avos deal with midas. What the other half deal with we'll come to in a moment, because this is can't be the complete theory on it, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But so important are midas that the Talmid of the Gra, Reb Chaim Volozhiner, says something which, if he had not said, it sounds astonishing to be said. But on the Mishnah that says, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot says, Im ein Torah ein derech eretz, im ein derech eretz ein Torah. So im ein Torah ein derech eretz, we know. Derech eretz there referring to midas, according to Rabbi Yohan, and many of the Rishonim say it's defining as midas. If you don't have Torah, then you can't have midas, because how do we know which midas are good and which ones are bad? Jealousy, the desire and the pursuit of honor take a person out of the world. Maybe kina taiva v'kavod are good things. Who says they're bad things? You need a Torah Shabal Peh to tell you that these are bad things. So im ein Torah, ein derech eretz. But then im ein derech eretz, ein Torah, the Ruach Chaim, Reb Chaim Volozhiner says something astonishing, which is hinted to in the Sforno. The Sforno says im ein Torah, im ein derech eretz, ein Torah. It's lo nikra Torah. This is not called Torah anymore. And the Reb Chaim Volozhiner says it. He says it even more explicitly and more powerfully. He says, if there's no derech eretz, then what is your Torah worth? It's worthless. It's worthless. And he compares it in the Mishnah. It's astonishing. In the other part of the Mishnah it says, Im ein kemach ein Torah, im ein Torah ein kemach. If there's no flour, there's no Torah. We know if there's no parnosa, then there can't be Torah, because the person needs to be able to live. A yeshiva like this needs funding, it needs donors, it needs people. Every individual needs donors. Kemach, a human being, needs to earn a parnasa themselves. Im ein kemach ein Torah. But then the Mishnah says, Im ein Torah ein kemach, meaning that if you don't have Torah, then what's the money worth? Without the money, you can't have Torah. But if you don't have Torah, then what's the point of having money? It's worthless because there's no meaning to it. So the Reb Chaim Volozhinus he says that is exactly what the Mishnah means. Im ein derech eretz ein Torah. If there's no good midas, then what is the Torah worth? The Torah is worthless. It's astonishing that he says such a thing. And Rav Chaim Shmulevitz in Sichos Musar, in a famous essay where he says that he in Nachbasad Darkein V'Nakora says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, he also says on this Mishnah Im ein derech eretz ein Torah, he says as part of a general mahalach, he said it is possible for a person to keep all Tariag mitzvahs and still be on the wrong derech in life. He says such a thing. Which is a frightening thing. How's it possible? Because he said the whole thing could be not in the spirit of what the Torah is. And what is the Torah? Pikud Hashem Yesharim. The ways of the statutes of the Torah are straight, are yashrus. They're filled with straightness and integrity and good midas. And the ways of the Torah are deracheh darchei noam v'chol nesivosei shalom. And he says if your Torah is in a way that is not darchei noam, and it's not nesivosei shalom, and it's not yashrus, then that's not Torah. You can say, I've kept every one of the seifim of Shulchan Aruch, but it is not what the Torah is. Im ein derech eretz ein Torah. And so this is what Reb Chaim Volozhinus says. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says this, and this comes as a direct Masorah from the Gra, because the Gra is that's what he's saying, is that milid avos is bein adam atzmo, which is midos, which means that it is equal to the other two pillars. And of course, the Tariag mitzvahs are vital. That doesn't have to be said. I mean, HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructs us, we have to do it. All of Shas and whole of Mishnah, all of Gemara, Shulchan Aruch is all about trying to decipher, understand, and keep the Tariag mitzvahs. So nothing needs to be said to the Tariag mitzvahs don't need a chizuk to emphasize their importance. But midos, that is the ikar of what this is. And so what we have then is ben adam la'atzmo is midos. But there's another dimension where you have to build your own midos, and that is through the mahalach of Pirkei Avot and all of the writings of the Gedolei HaMusar. But the other dimension of ben adam la'atzmo, the Gra and the Maharal say again separately, they're not referring to each other, and presumably obviously the Maharal came first, but I don't believe that the Gra was reading the writings of the Maharal. I could stand to correction on that, but it's remarkable how they came out. That they on the Mishnah that says that the Olam Oimed al Shlosha Dvarim, the second Mishnah in Avos, Torah Avodah Gemilas Chasadim, the learning of Torah Avodah meaning Tefillah, Gemilas Chasadim Chesed, says the Gra and the Maharal. Avodah is bein adam lemakom, Gemilas Chasadim is bein adam lechaveira, and Torah, learning Torah, bein adam la'atzmo. It's the person and themselves. And if you look in Avos, you will see there that Avos, when you look through the Mishnayos, there are two big themes in Avos. One is Midos, but the other is Talmud Torah. It's full of, there's a list, I did a short little, try to make a list of, there to my calculation, at least 50 bavas or so plus in Avos alone, which deal with the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, of learning Torah. That's the other part of Ben Adam La'atzmo. It is the mitzvah that builds who you are, because through when learning Torah, we are actually then looking at the world through the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It transforms who we are because it transforms our thinking. And actually, if you see the Rambam's introduction to Pirkei Avos, the Shmona Prakim, the Rambam says essentially, and the Rambam, he writes the Shmona Prakim, as you know, and it's an entire work in its own right, and in some ways it feels a little bit, he left us a lot of work to do ourselves, because he doesn't link it directly to what's in the Masechta itself. He comes back to it in his Perush, but in his introduction he says the human being, what is it that makes up the human being? The two things that we have control over, where we have Bechira Chovshis, one is the Seichel, and the other is the midas of a person. And that is who the human being is. And we have to build up those two things, which correlate to this definition of Beit Adam La'atzmo that comes out of the Gra and the Maharal, which is the idea of Midos and Talmud Torah, the learning of Torah. And that is what you're involved in all day. Because you see, the interesting thing about the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, I don't believe there's anywhere else in Shas that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is dealt with in, when I say in Shas, I mean the Mishnah. I'm not talking about the Gemara. There are many Agaditas about Talmud Torah. Brachos, there's no direct reference to it. It's, it comes up, if a person is saying Kriyat Shema and he's learning and is admitted Strichas Kavona, so if it's one of the Tariag mitzvahs and the Mishnah deals with all Tariag mitzvahs, where's the mitzvah of Talmud Torah in all of Shas? In Shas Mishnah, I'm saying. It should be there, because you should be able to find every one of the Tariag mitzvahs somewhere in Shas Mishnah, and it's not there except in Avos. And here's the interesting thing about the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Certainly if you go according to the Rambam, others may disagree. As a mitzvah, if you're going to look at the mitzvah of Talmud Torah in terms of the cold light of Shulchan Aruch, your yotze, your mitzvah of Talmud Torah, according to the Rambam, Kriya Shema Shel Shachris V'Arvis. That's it. Maybe that's what they would actually say is the mitzvah of Talmud Torah in Shas, would be the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, because it is basically you yotze your mitzvah of Talmud Torah with Kriya Shema Shel Shachris and Arvis, the two Shmas that you say in the day. But that would be to look at Talmud Torah as a technical obligation in terms of Shulchan Aruch. But what about the Kesed Torah? What about what it is to be a Jew? That goes beyond the halachic minimum requirement of what Talmud Torah. In a certain way, Talmud Torah is operating in Avos not as a mitzvah, it's operating as like the midas, which are too big to be contained by the Tariag. The Tariag mitzvahs are there for the things which you can contain. A lulav, a shema. These are things which are containable within that space. Even if you think about it, the mitzvah of chesed, which is one of the mitzvahs referred to in Avos, in terms of Shulchan Aruch, you could never do a chesed, and you would never be over one of the Tariag. You'd have lost opportunities. But a person, if you know about a choile that you could visit and you decide not to visit the sick person, have you been mevatel the mitzvahs aseh v'alachta b'dracha? Very hard to say that halachically. So therefore, halachically speaking, in terms of minimum obligation of Shulchan Aruch, so then you can say, listen, what's that got to do with me? Chesed, what does Talmud Torah got to do with me? What does Midas have to do with me? And the message of Avos is that there's another whole branch of what it is to be a Jew. It's not just the mitzvahs we do for Hashem and the mitzvahs we do for our fellow person. The question is, who is the individual that emerges from this? It's not only what we do. To be a Jew is not a checklist of Shulchan Aruch where you check it off and then you say, I'm now Yotze Zayin, I've done everything I need to do. To be a Jew is who is the person that emerges from it. As it says there in the Brisa that they added onto Pirkei Avot, which I think is with the opening paragraph of the Perek of Kinyan Torah, which is brought the Perek Shishi. The opening Brisa is the fusion of where Talmud Torah and Midas comes together, because it says that Kol ha'osek b'Torah lishma is nikra reya ahuv oivas hamakom oivas habrios, loves people, loves Hashem, beloved by Hashem, beloved to people. Anova v'yira, has humility, has a sense of awe, and has eitzah, toshia, has strength and advice and insight and wisdom and gevura and courage. This is the portrait of a ben Torah, a person who is learning Torah lishma, but that becomes transformational, where the human being, where the Jew that emerges from that is not just the person who went in to do a checklist. It is the complete, and that's who Hashem wants us to be. And so the big mistake often that people make is they're looking to grow in Torah and mitzvahs, and then they look for a chumrah in halacha. It's just the wrong place to look. It's the easy place to look. If you person wants to go find like a nice chumrah to do, then they can go find it, because they can say, there's this shitta, and now I'm mekayim this shitta, and now my meat is at this level of mahadrin and not that level, and I'm going to not rely on Rav Moshe's heter on chalav stam, and that's how I'm going to hold myself as a person. but it's looking in the wrong place. If you're looking to grow, you don't look to grow in halacha, because there is minimum entrance. You have to keep halacha. There's no question about it. Shulchan Aruch, Noisa Kalim, that in a sense is minimum entrance. The place to grow is in your Talmud Torah, your learning of Torah. Then you can become a gadol in learning, and the place to grow is in Midas. But those places, very hard to show it to other people. It's very hard to tangibly point to it, so it's not so popular to say, well, this Elul, I'm going to be working on the midah of Kina. I'm going to work on that midah of Kina. It's much easier to say, this Elul, I'm going to be taking on to daven nates the whole of Elul and not to have Pasakum. It's much easier to go there, because you can point to it, you can show it, you don't have to work so hard at it, you just do it. Whereas if you go work on the midah of Kina, this is what Rabbi Salsalanta, this was his whole thing. Who is the Ben Torah that comes out of this whole world that we live in, which is the portrait in that opening paragraph there of Perek Shishi in Avos. And that is really what the calling is. And that's when, as a Ben Yeshiva, when I say to Yeshiva Bochrim, what is your role here? What is your task? Your whole day is Bein Adam La'atzmai. Of course you're doing a Bein Adam La'makom, and you're doing a Bein Adam La'chaveiro. But what the Gra and Reb Chaim Belozhin and Reb Chaim Shmulevitz and what the entire legacy of the great Litvischer Rabbonim and the Muslim movement, the entire legacy of Rabbi Salsalanta, what it is to say is that you to be working on yourself. That is the greatest thing that you can be doing. And that's what you're doing when you are learning. You're developing yourself. You're learning Torah. You're immersed in Torah. You're starting to see the world through the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're growing in who you are. And that is what Hashem wants from you. And the final point to that is this, which comes up, and I'll end with this because I know that our time is limited. But what comes out at the end as well is a deep sense of achrayus for Klal Yisrael. And that's what I truly love about Ohr Somayach, about this yeshiva and this base midrash and the Torah that it produces, because it is a Torah and B'nai Torah who have a sense of achrayus, of responsibility for Klal Yisrael. You know, Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky Shlita, may he be well, was one of the great highlights that I had as chief rabbi, and I look back on all these years, probably the greatest time ever was when I had the schus to host Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky in Johannesburg for a week. And I spent a week with him, and it was the most unbelievable experience. It was worth, 1 week with Rav Shmuel was worth 1,000 Sifrei Musa, because he's a walking Sefer Musa. In every little interaction with people of you know, the sensitivity, the kindness, the Edelkeit, it was just phenomenal. And I'll never forget two things from that. One was, it was one of the first inspirations, which I didn't even realize at the time, for the Shabbos project, because I was, on the Friday night, I brought him to one of the shuls, with the Yeshiva College shul in Glen Hazel, and it was a packed audience. There must have been that Friday night, well over 1,000 people, maybe 1,500, I don't know. It was packed to the rafters, and everyone was coming to hear the words of Gadol Hador, and he got up. As everybody knows, Kedarka B'Kodesh, he spoke very short, not like I'm doing today. He was like mamish, very, very short, as he always does. He just says what has to be said. And he got up, everyone was waiting with bated breath, and he spoke about Shabbos for about 3 minutes. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael, so Shabbos is important. Jews should keep Shabbos, and he sat down. It was something more or less. I don't remember his exact words, but it was as straightforward as that, and that was the single message. And then he sat down, and then he was in his mid-80s. Today, Baruch Hashem, I think he's, past mid-90s. And he's always been, so physically active, and he'd traveled all the way to South Africa, and he said it was worth flying all of those thousands of miles from United States of America to South Africa to say the word Shabbos in front of so many Jews. Okay, that was a few years before the Shabbos project, but when I heard him, and I didn't even realize that, only afterwards I realized what a deep impression that made on me, because that's been the vision of the Shabbos project, is to say the word Shabbos in front of as many Jews as we can. And so that was the one thing. Anyway, you can think about it. There's a lot to ponder on that, but we don't have the time. The other thing that he said, which made a very deep impression on me, and which is why I love this Beis Midrash so much, is he was in there were a group of people, and someone said to him, what is the most important thing to strive for? And you're asking Rabbi Shmuel Kamenetsky to be a Talmid Chacham, could have given a whole list of different things. His answer was to be a Klal Mensch, be a person who cares about Klal Yisrael. Achrayus, responsibility. And that's a major theme that also comes out of Avos, is that Kol HaMezakes HaRabim, that a person who's b'makom she'ein ish, hishtadel liyos ish, u'kushani la'atzmi, mani. The major theme of Avos is, it's true I'm going to build myself, but what about the rest of Klal Yisrael? And what I love about this Beis Midrash, about Ohr Somayach, is its breitkeit. It's the sense of the broadness of it that says, we're not here just for ourselves. Of course, to help Klal Yisrael, you have to come and sit in a yeshiva in the Daled Amashal Halacha and be completely immersed, 3 Sidorim a day and be a masmid. But once you've done that, and you've done that for a few years and you're ready to go out, then you go out and you take responsibility. It's never been that the Beis Midrash here is the end point of a person's journey. It is part of the beginning of that journey. And that we can't have all of Klal Yisrael who need Torah and mitzvahs and chesed and leadership, and that we're then going to just say, well, at least I'm looked after and I'm okay. Where's the achrayas? And then someone will say, well, where's it written in Shulchan Aruch achrayas for Klal Yisrael? And Taka, where is it written? You won't find it. There's no sif in Shulchan Aruch that says the siman misha mechuyev la'asos b'shvil hatzibur. It's al tifrosh min hatzibur. It's all of Pirkei Avot is about achrayas for the tzibur, which is if Klal Yisrael is in need, I have a chiyuv to do it. And it will be like what the Gra said about midas. It's not in Shulchan Aruch, not because it's not important, but because it's too big to be contained in Shulchan Aruch. You can't. It's like saying that the she'ifah, the dream to be a Talmid Chacham, you can put it in a sif in Shulchan Aruch, and midas you can put as a sif in Shulchan Aruch. These things are too big for that. And the Bein Adam La'atzmoi should never be a selfish Bein Adam La'atzmoi. It's Bein Adam La'atzmoi in order that we can give to Klal Yisrael. And that is what is so incredible about this Beis Midrash. And I want to say to the wonderful Talmidim who are here, this is a yeshiva that set up yeshivas, kiruv institutions in South Africa, in America, and other places. And as Talmidim of this yeshiva, you need to go out into the world and makarev and reach Jews. Whether you do that, let's say you're here only for a year or 2 or 3, that doesn't matter. You don't need the title of a rabbi to go out and reach other Jews. The Mishnah, when it says Hamidu Talmidim Harbe, says the Tiferes Yisrael. What does that mean, to make many students? That means every Jew is obligated to make many students, not just the Rabbonim and the Talmidei Chachamim. Every Jew is. Whatever you learn, you must go out and teach. And for those who are able to, then to spend many years and get smicha and go out and become Rabbonim and go and build Klal Yisrael. There's too much in the Torah world. We are limiting ourselves to Shulchan Aruch, and we're saying we got Shulchan Aruch, we got that down, we know Shas inside out, and we know Shulchan Aruch inside out. But actually, Shulchan Aruch is not the end of being a Jew; it's just the beginning. Midas, Talmud Torah, Achrayas, and where's all of that? Avos. That therefore, man de boile mahave chasida. When you've done all of Tariag mitzvahs, man de boile mahave chasida, a person who wants to be truly great, then you need mili de avos. That will then give you that hashkafa. And so, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless all of the Talmidim and the Rebbeim of this incredible Torah institution, that you should build yourselves bein Adam la'atzmoi, but that should be the beginning. And from bein Adam la'atzmoi should be the Mayan HaMizgaber, as that Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says here, that that what happens with the Talmid Chacham, that such a person is like a Mayan, v'nase k'Mayan HaMizgaber u'chenash eino poisek. When you have such greatness within you, then you can be an overflowing spring of water, bringing the waters of Torah to a world that is in a state of drought, and you will be that overflowing spring because it will be all inside you. So may Hashem bless you on that journey, and may this yeshiva continue to thrive. Michayil El Chayil. Thank you so much.